So, good morning everybody. Welcome to the webinar of the evaluation tool. My name is Ioannis Karakikes and I'm a researcher of the University of Thessaly and member of the development team of the evaluation tool. Now, before jumping on the web application, I would like to introduce you the evaluation tool theoretical content. So the user that is going to log in into the evaluations tool should determine the city and the stakeholder category that he belongs to. The objectives that have been set from the cities can determine the measure that the city will adopt or implement in order to improve the urban freight distribution, the urban freight transport of the city. Now it comes the evaluation part. The measure will be evaluated into into all or some of the life cycle stages. The life cycle stages are the creation, construction life cycle stages, the operation, the maintenance, and the closure disposal life cycle stage. Once we have determined the life cycle stages, we have selected the life cycle stages that we are interested in, we have to determine their respective components of indicators, criteria, and impact areas through which the evaluation will take place. Once we have set these components, then the weighting process is following, and then the evaluation tool normalizes, aggregates, and outputs the notorious life cycle sustainability index per measure, or in the event that we have one or more than one measures, we can have the comparative life cycle sustainability index. But enough with the theory, let's jump to the web application of the Novelog evaluation tool. So this is the Novelog evaluation first screen, the home screen. As you can see on the left side, there is the main menu with the black color, and there are some options into this menu. Let's go through that options one by one. So the first button is the run scenario. This is the basic button that I'm going to click later on in order to run a whole scenario. So for now, I'm just going to skip this. The modules. Now I don't want to go any deeper into the modules. I just want to say a couple of things for those. Modules provide some additional functionalities which can be run individually by the software. Although the focus of this demonstration is on the multi-criteria, multi-stakeholder evaluation, so I'm just going to skip them also at this point. To proceed, we have the history button as the third option at our main menu. The history button can be clicked in order the user to trace back all pending or completed scenarios that have been run by the user, by this very user into the past, and can track them back in order to complete them if there are pending, like in this case, or he can export the results into an Excel file, or he can see the values that he has already input, and so on. Now, the user measure. The user measures is an advanced option of the evaluation tool. It gives the user the chance to create a new measure by stating the new name of this measure and making all the interrelation of this measure in every life cycle stage that he wants to perform the evaluation. Again, for the sake of this demonstration, or this option is being skipped. Now, the profile option. The new user should just log into the evaluation tool and type his password, his previous password, and set a new personalized password. This is the very first step that is described into the manual. Now, speaking of which, the manual contains all the instructions, is the step-by-step roadmap for all users prior to the running of the scenario. Now, it is highly recommended to have a very good look into this evaluation tool manual before starting running the whole scenario. And as the last option is the help button. The help button reveals all the correlations between the impact areas, the criteria, and the indicators. That means that every indicator belongs to one criterion, and this criterion respectively belongs to one impact area. As you can see in this column, every criteria, every indicator is corresponding to uniquely to one module, um, and this SCBM, for example, stands for the Social Cost Benefit Analysis module, and as you can see, all the indicators have been assigned to one module. But we will see them later on more in depth. So let's start running the whole scenario from the very beginning. Now, as you can see, I have logged in using the username evalogcity_PA. This first part of this username stands for the name of the city. In my case, the city that I have selected is the Evalog city. Of course, this is a fictitious city. And the PA right here stands for the stakeholder category. PA stands for public authorities. Respectively, we could have Evalog city _ SC, supply chain, or _O, other stakeholder categories. Now, my fictitious city, the Evalog city, doesn't have any objectives, of course, because it's a fictitious city. What I did was to copy-paste all the objectives from the city of Graz. So right here you can see the primary objectives of the city of Graz and the secondary objectives of the city of Graz. If the user wants, can add a new primary objective by just selecting the field that he wants to add the new objective, for example in the social, and I want to have a better life quality. So I just click on the add icon and the new objective will be added. Now if I just want to delete this new objective or one of the others, I just have to click on the trash icon and this objective will be removed automatically. As you can see, the objectives are just for reporting reasons and just for justification of the selection of the measure. That means that according to the objectives that the city has set, the selection of the measure can be performed. Now, as you can see, there is a secondary objective of the city of Graz to increase urban consolidation centers, and this is going to be the base for my decision to choose urban consolidation centers as the measure that will be evaluated. As you can see, this is the list of the 22 measures that the novelog sees. And now we want to know in which life cycle stages each measure will be evaluated. As I told you before, there are 4 life cycle stages: the creation and construction stage, the operation, the maintenance, and the closure disposal life cycle stage. In this case, I'm going to just use the operation and maintenance life cycle stage in order to save some time. As you can understand, these are two of the most important life cycle stages. And as a last step of this screen, I have to add a name for the case study, for the scenario that I'm running right now. Let's call it webinar video. This is the name of the scenario that I'm running right here, and the software gives me the opportunity, the chance to add some comments here, some notes if I want to keep some notes, or I want to communicate something to my colleagues. So the first screen is already set, so I just click on the proceed button and I can move forward. Now, on the top of this screen, there's an information box, let's say, for the screen that we are in. For example, this webinar video is the name of the scenario that I'm running right now. The urban consolidation centers right here expresses the measure that we are evaluating. The life cycle stage operation means that right now we are evaluating the urban consolidation center in the life cycle stage operation and not in the maintenance. We will do this after finishing, completing the operation lifecycle stage, and we have to select the impact areas as well. This is the instruction for this very screen. We have to select the impact areas. Now, as you probably already know, there are 7 impact areas: the economy and energy, the environment, the transport and mobility, the society, the policy and measured maturity, the social acceptance, and the user uptake. Now, I could click or unclick whatever I want. This is my scenario, so I'm just going to keep the 6 out of 7 impact areas. I'm going to exclude the policy and measured maturity. And just click proceed. I have already set up my impact area, the impact areas that I want to be considered into the evaluation. Now I have to do exactly the same thing for the criteria. Now, as you can see with the dark green boxes, you can see the impact areas that I have selected, and into those boxes you can see the criteria. For example, the economy and energy impact area, you have 4 corresponding criteria. For this example, for this demonstration, I'm going to just keep the benefits and costs. In the environment impact area, I'm going to just keep the greenhouse emissions and the noise pollution. Both constitute objectives of the city of Graz, and that's why I keep them. The transport and mobility dark green box, I'm going to keep the transport system and VFD vehicles as criteria for this impact area. From the society, the living standards. From the social acceptance, the social approval, the unique one. And from the user uptake, I'm going to just keep the consensus. So I have already determined the criteria, and now it's time for the indicators. Every tab here designates an impact area. So now we are in the economy and energy impact areas. In the criterion benefits, we just have one corresponding interrelated indicator. The name of this indicator is strength and diversification of local economy. This parenthesis right here expresses the module that every indicator belongs to. In this case is the social cost benefit module, analysis module. This indicator is categorized into this module. And I'm going to keep this indicator, of course, and in the costs criterion, I'm going to just leave the enforcement costs. Everything else will be unclicked. I'm doing exactly the same for the environment impact area. In the criterion greenhouse emissions, I'm going to just keep the CO2 emissions, and from the noise pollution, the noise. Again, the same. From the transport mobility, I'm going to keep the delays and the traffic throughput and load factor. From the society, I'm just going to keep the first 2, the changes in legislation at European and national level, and the changes in legislation at city level. This is just my decision. This is only the components that I need in order to perform the evaluation according to my preferences, let's say. And if I just click the proceed button over right here, I'm going to get this pop-up window that says that there are some pending tabs that I should visit. These tabs are the social acceptance and the user uptake. That means that I have to visit them, otherwise the software doesn't allow me to proceed. Now, from the social acceptance, I'm going to keep the TAM, the final user acceptance, as an indicator, and from the user uptake, I'm going to keep the contracting. So now we're okay, we're good to go. Let's just click on the proceed button. Now the setup of the scenario has been already completed. Now it's time for the weighting procedure. Now, as you can see, there is a light box over here with the economy and energy and the environment. Behind this light box lies a question: how much more important is an economy and energy as compared to the environment? Or backwards, how much more important is environment as compared to the economy and energy? The instructions are still here, so we have to compare the impact areas, and I'm gonna perform this comparison using this this scroll, this volume bar. As a public authority of my picture city, I believe that the environment is 3 times more important than the economy and energy. So I'm going to just scroll this volume bar 2 times to the side of the environment, on the left or on the right side. I'm going to do exactly the same for the economy and energy and transport and mobility. I think that the transport and mobility, as a transport engineer, of course, it's 2 times more important than the economy and energy. This is my decision. It's purely depending on me. Um, this is the justification for the scoring of the comparison. For the economy and energy and society, I would say that society, of course, as a public authority, is 3 times more important than the economy and energy. So I just scrolled 3 times this volume bar on the right side again. The economy and energy, in comparison with the social acceptance, I think that the economy and energy is 2 times more important. And the economy and energy, as compared to the user uptake, I would say that it is equally, I think I want to be equally weighted, those two impact areas, so I don't have to scroll this volume bar. Now we do exactly the same for all possible connections, relations between the economy and between all impact areas. But in order to save some time, I'm going to just leave them equally weighted, uh, all these impact areas, and I'm going to just click on the proceed button. So now this is the weighting table. As you can see, these dark green boxes designates the impact areas that I have selected in the setup of the scenario, and all these final weights sum up to 1 to the unit. This consistency ratio is a statistical index, nothing else, that says that if it is less than 10% or in some cases less than 30%, designates, expresses that the comparison that I have made in the previous screen are not arbitrarily taken, or they're not just coming out of my mind. There is a procedure that I follow. So I just click the proceed button. And now it's time to weight all the respective criteria of the impact areas. So now I am in the economy and energy impact area, and I have to compare two criteria, the benefits and the costs. As a public authority, again, I think that the benefits are most important than the costs. Benefits expressing here the employment or unemployment indexes. So I think that benefits are more should be at least more important than costs for the public authorities. Anyways, this is just an example. So I'm just going to place this volume bar at 2 on the left side. I'm going to do exactly the same for the environment, greenhouse emissions, noise pollution. I think the greenhouse emissions are 2 times more important. For the transport and mobility impact area, I'm just going to leave them equally weighted. For the society, this is something interesting. I'm getting this dialog, this window that says that in this impact area we have just chosen only one criteria, so this criteria cannot be compared. There is nothing to be compared with, and it takes the whole unit of the weight. I think the same applies for the social acceptance, and the same applies for the user update. That's right. So I just click on the proceed button, and I get the weighting table, which now incorporates also the weights of the criteria. As you can see right here, this is the weight as you saw it before for this impact area, and these are the two criteria belonging to this impact area. As I gave a weight of 2 times, we stated that the benefits are 2 times more important than costs. That means that the weight is double in comparison with the weight of the costs. And of course, these two indicators, because they both belong to the same impact area, sum up to the unit again. This final weight actually is the result of the multiplication of this number 0.667 times 0.122. So this is the result, a final weight of this indicator. I'm doing exactly the same process for the indicators very fastly. Now you can see the economy and energy impact area, the corresponding criterion benefits and the costs. In this criteria, the benefits, there is only one indicator, so again this indicator will take the whole unit. That applies also for the costs. And moving forward, This is for the environment impact area. Again, here there is only one indicator per criterion, so there's nothing to compare. In the transport and mobility impact area, in the UFD vehicles criterion, there is the traffic throughput and the load factor. I'm just going to let them equally weighted. Now I'm just remind you that if I just click proceed here, I'm going to take this window again, saying that I have to visit every available pending tab, every impact area. So I just visit them and I click proceed. And this is the final weighting table containing all the information about the impact areas, the criteria, and the indicators. As you can see, this is the indicator that has been added to this criterion, and because it's only one indicator belonging to this criterion, this indicator took the whole unit of the weight. Now this number respectively is the outcome of the multiplication of this number of the weight of this indicator times the final weight of the criterion. And now the software gives this extra choice, this extra option to export this weighting table in order to be presentable and to be transferable to anyone who might be interested in knowing the weighting procedure that we have followed. I'm not going to do this right now. By export, we export an Excel file, nothing fancy. So I'm just going to click on the proceed button and I'm going to move forward into the last step of our evaluation tool. And this step, again, the instruction for this step is to enter data for before and after measure implementation. As you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. The first column, the indicator, designates the number of the indicator, the name of the indicator. In this case is the strength and diversification of local economy. In the second column, we see the data needed in order to collect the data for this indicator is the investment in major facilities that create a lasting asset for the local community and the involved stakeholders. The third column expresses the explanation, contains the information about the explanation of this indicator is change of dynamics in the domain of economy in the mean of increasing potential for growth increase in the future. And the fourth column contains the information about the units of this indicator. Now, as you can see from the very first indicator, there are some indicators which are qualitative and some indicators like the second one that can be measured into monetary terms. They can be quantified. Let's keep our focus into the first indicator. Now I'm supposed to fill in some value to these radio buttons for the before phase, before implementing the urban consolidation centers. And this is the value that I have to add for the after phase, after having implemented the urban consolidation centers. If I just click on this green light box over here, show the likely scale, there is a question. The question is, what would be the effect on strength and diversification of local economy due to UFD activities in terms of new investment? Let's say for the before value, for the before phase, we had from 2 to 3 new investment. So I just have to click on the 2 radio button for the before implementation, and for the after implementation, let's say we made an assumptions or we do know the data because we have already implemented this measure 2 or 3 years later on from this time, from now. And let's say that we managed to attract some new investments and the total amount of the investment is 4 to 6. So I just have to click the third button. So again, before 2, after 3. I want to show you the second indicator as an example as well. This refers to the enforcement cost. The explanation for this indicator is the total cost usually spent by the local or regional authority for enforcing regulation and policies, and this indicator is being measured in euros, of course. Now, the period that we have to give the values, we have to give the values over a certain period. This period could be a month, could be a year, could be a day, it doesn't matter. The only precondition, the only restriction that we have to follow right here is those two numbers to be proportional. That means that we have to give the after and the before value over the same period of time. Let's say in this example, if I say that the city of Graz, for example, spends 100,000 euros for enforcing regulations and policies, after the implementation of the urban consolidation centers, to this cost there should be a decrease. There should be, according to the objectives, let's say, that we have set initially, this cost will be decreased 20%. So the new number should be 80,000 euros. Now I'm doing the whole process for all indicators. I just want to make a very small comment over here. Now the cities have not yet implemented the measures that they would like to evaluate. This will be achieved into a certain period of time, in 6 months, in 1 year, or maybe even more. So that means that they won't be able to collect all the after values for these indicator values. That means that the cities could just click on the save, having already completed, filled in the before values of all indicators. They should, of course, because they have selected these indicators, they should be able to know the values for these indicators for the before implementation phase. They just have to click on the save and continue, and the software will save the current progress up to that point in the history main menu option, as I showed you before. And then after the implementation of the measures and after having gathered all the necessary values of the data for the after phase, they can just trace back their pending scenario, their incomplete scenario, and finish it, complete it. In this case, this is just a demonstration, so I will make some assumptions. Let's say that the total CO2 emissions over a year for the city of Graz have been decreased again in 20%. So that means that before we had 1 million kilograms of CO2 emissions, now we're going to have 100,000 kilogram of CO2 emissions. The decibel, the noise level before it was 50, we have a slight improvement, and now the new decibel on the new noise level is 48 decibels. The delays, before we had 100,000 vehicle hours total delays in traffic. Now there is an improvement of 20%. Let's say this is 80,000 vehicle hours after the implementation of the measure. The traffic throughput, before it was 100,000 vehicle kilometers. Now let's say it's 80,000 vehicle kilometers. There is also this improvement of 20%, and that's something interesting about the load factor. Now the load factor before was, let's say, 60%. That means that the trucks for the pickups and the deliveries could load the trunk was loaded only by 60%. Now with the introduction of urban consolidation centers, this load factor can be raised up to 70%. That means we have an increase of 10% into the load factor. And I'm going to do exactly the same for the rest of indicators. For all qualitative, I'm going to keep the 2 as a before value and 3 as an after value in order to save some time. And since we have completed all required fields for all indicators, I'm just gonna click on the proceed button, and this and now we're already completed the life cycle stage of the operational life cycle stage. Now we're supposed, if I just click on the proceed, I will redirect it to the very first screen. I'm gonna have to do exactly to set up the scenario for the maintenance. I'm not gonna do this right now in order to save some time again. But you are lucky because I have already prepared a new scenario. I ran this scenario a few days before, and This is a complete scenario, as you can see. It contains exactly the same values, exactly the same selection of impact areas, criteria, and indicators. So now we are ready to see the reports, the results of this evaluation. Now, as you can see, this case study name that I ran a few days before, it's called Evalog Test PA. That was the name of the respective name that I gave. Now I gave webinar test. This is exactly the similar. The city, of course, is the Evalog city, my city. The user, the Evalog city underscore PA, as I described you here before during the first screen demonstration. And this is the final outcome. This is the notorious LSI that for the before phase, before implementing the urban consolidation centers, had a value equal to 0.72, and now we see a significant improvement of 0.901 after the implementation of the urban consolidation centers. Something that makes us very happy because we see that this is finally a very good measure to be implemented, at least under the viewpoint of the public authorities. Again, you can see the objectives that have been determined into the first screen, and now you can see the results. The results can be found separated into the operation lifecycle stage and the maintenance lifecycle stage, or you can see the comprehensive, the total results under this area, lifecycle index per impact area. This is the final outcome. Let's start with every lifecycle stage. I'm just going firstly to the operation lifecycle stage. You can see the web diagram that the software automatically generates, and this web diagram has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 peaks. Every peak stands for one impact area. As you can see, the first peak is for the economy and energy. This axis over here is for the environment. This axis over here is for the transport and mobility. The next axis is for the society, the social acceptance, and the user uptake. Some comments to make on the results. As you can see, the blue line over here designates the before values, while the dark line designates the after values. As you can see, there is an improvement in the economy and energy impact area because the after value here is equal to 1. I'm always referring to the operational lifecycle stage, not the maintenance or the overall. The economy and energy, as I was saying, after is equal to 1, before it was equal to 0.556. The same applies for the environment. After it is equal to 1, before it was equal to 0.515. And as you can easily be perceived that 4 out of 6 impact areas have been improved: the user uptake, the economy and energy, the environment, and the transport and mobility. And 2 out of the 6 impact areas, the social acceptance, analytically, and the society, have been deteriorated. Now, all these values of this web diagram can be found here below. For example, the economy and energy, the before value for the economy and energy, as I showed you, is 0.556. This is the value, as you can see it on the wire or on the web diagram, and the after value is equal to 1. This is the value. So that was the operation life cycle stage. And of course, you can see the weights again of this life cycle stage. The software gives us the opportunity to jump back to the weighting procedure and to see all the results. Maybe we have the opportunity again here to export this weighting table. Exactly the same for the maintenance. This is the web diagram for the maintenance life cycle stage. In this life cycle stage, we see that the society is the only impact area that has been deteriorated. The before value is bigger, is higher. Society, the before value is equal to 1. The after implementation value is equal to 0.667. that means that 5 out of 6 impact areas have been improved. And again, the same functionalities apply for the maintenance, and these are the overall results. This depiction, this web diagram is actually incorporating the two life cycle stages into one web diagram, and now it is clearer than ever that there is an improvement in the user uptake, the economy and energy, the environment, the transport and mobility, the impact areas. We have exactly the same situation as regards the social acceptance. The social acceptance for the before value is equal to 0.833, and the after value is exactly the same. And in the impact area society, the before value still remains higher, equal to 1 for the before value, for the before implementation phase, and after the implementation phase, it's equal to 0.667. So this was the produced results. The software gives us also the possibility, the capability to show the indicators that we have selected during the operational life cycle stage and the maintenance life cycle stage. When we can see also the values that have been attributed into these indicators. So I just hide this option right here, and I can just click finish, which will redirect me into the first screen, or I can just click on the export report button, and the software will output an Excel file containing all the information, more or less exactly the same as you can see in the very last screen. We're not done yet. All this evaluation was theoretically made by the public authority stakeholder category. Exactly the same process should be conducted by the other stakeholder categories, and from the supply chain stakeholders and from the others. At the end of the day, once all stakeholders categories have already completed their scenarios, they have run a whole scenario referring to this very measure, then the moderator, the moderator of the city will have to take the weights, the scenario of course, and the weights that have been assigned to every stakeholder category according to the rounds of negotiations and rounds of argumentations between the stakeholder, and input them into the software. Let me just be more analytic. Let's say that the stakeholder categories of the city of Evalog have already concluded that they are equally weighted. All opinions, all decisions are equally weighted, as I said. So I just give a score of 0.33, 0.33 for public authorities and 0.33 for the other stakeholder category. I just save these weights, and now it's time to generate the global LSI. Before generating the global LSI, I have to say that this main menu for the moderator, only for the moderator, is quite different. And there are some other options that the moderator can perform, but I think it is out of the scope of this demonstration. So now it's time to generate the global LSI. The global LSI takes into consideration all the scenarios that have been run from all stakeholder categories. I just have to click here to open the list of the measures and select the urban consolidation center, the urban consolidation center. Then I just click on the view history, and the software just appears all the completed scenarios that or the pending scenarios that have been run by the respective user, the respective stakeholder category, meaning the respective stakeholder category. So what I did on a few days before again was to run a scenario as a supply chain of the Evalog city, a complete scenario. So I just have to select the scenario. I have to select the scenario as a public authority that I ran again a few days before, And the last scenario, as another stakeholder category, I also run it in advance, and I have already selected one scenario from every stakeholder category, and the only thing that remains to do is to click on the generate GLSI, and this is the improvement. This is a huge improvement towards the measure implementation. The global LSI, the global meaning that takes into consideration all stakeholder opinions, as I mentioned before, was 0.694, and now the after implementation phase we get a global LSI of 0.913. This is a very good score for the new for the after implementation phase. That means that the adoption and implementation of this measure was quite a successful decision of the city of Evalor. So this was the demonstration of the novelog evaluation tool. In any case, if you have any questions that you would like to raise, or if you have to make any comments, you can contact the development team of the novelog evaluation tool. Thank you very much for your attention, and we'll be in touch. Ciao.